Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back to the show. Today is part number 6 of I Found My Likeness in a Torture Game, written by Cecily 1987. And with that, sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy the show. I found myself stuck in a nightmare, unable to wake up. It was a colorful, sickening dream. Most likely it was brought on by the fear, pain, and drugs being pumped and forced into me at the time. I had become lucid at some point in my waking nightmare. I found myself in the incredibly real feeling kill room. I could feel the tiles underneath my bare feet, and staring up at the bright light made me squint my eyes. Just like in real life or in the video game Harold sent me, I was stuck in another simulation, like a prison. Another reality of hell created just for me. I could hear my son crying for me, and somehow I knew it was my funeral. I could hear Tony screaming that it was Mel's fault. No, Tony. Mel was tricked too, I told him as he lay bleeding on the tile floor next to me.
Then who killed Stanton, you idiot? Who got him killed?
Tony screamed and pointed behind me. I turned to see Stanton standing right next to me, his breath as bad as Harold's was in the waking world. Half of Stanton's face was missing, and just stood there, gargling blood out of his mouth. Hours passed within the dream. No, days passed. Damn, maybe only seconds. But my stomach had railroad spikes sticking in them, and Harold teased me by pouring bleach down my throat.
It's why it hurts when you breathe,
he smiled at me.
Chug it like a good girl.
He would cut his face with a knife, and then cut mine. He would bust out his front teeth, and then bust out mine.
We share everything,
he croaked, his green eyes glowing a sinister glow.
We will be a Hollywood power couple. You will even have a new, better son with me.
There was a prick in my thigh in real life, and the nightmare faded away as I awoke to the actual nightmare, standing right in front of me. Harold of the Void stepped back from me, placing a syringe into his pocket. His goofy attitude was all gone now, replaced with a grim darkness in his countenance. Both he and I were cleaned up from the vomit, but I was still tied up in my Y position on the slanted table.
I had thought long and hard about what to do with you once I finally had you here with me,
Harold said with a deadpan concern, staring holes into me.
I considered using a light touch to break you in. But maybe you need something harsher. Your own personal growth in life is over now, but you still have a lot more days ahead of you, pet.
He explained, like he was talking to a school child.
Your own journey in life had ended the moment you were brought here. Now you exist for the fulfillment of my life. So I wanted to slowly bend you to my will and not let my excitement get the best of me, and I accidentally break you. I needed you to forget yourself and embrace pleasing me. Do you understand?
I didn't answer.
See?
He sighed.
That's the sort of attitude I'm talking about. You're stubborn. I blame elitist third-wave feminism and your pretty privilege. I guess I'll have to use a hammer to break your shell. Then we will see if you are hard the whole way through. So here is the game,
he exclaimed with crazy fervor, fully embracing the dollar bin Joker shtick again. Or maybe it was more like Jigsaw. He stormed out of the room, throwing back the black tarp. just to come back with Mel in that awful wheelchair.
For such a strong, independent woman who doesn't need a man, you sure have left a lot of dead or disfigured men in your wake.
Yes, I considered myself a feminist, but I had never said I never needed men in my life. And yes, I was very aware of how many people, that just happened to be men, had been hurt or killed trying to protect me. I grieved even now for Stenton, though I only knew him for the one day before he was murdered in front of me. I worried for Tony's recovery as he fought for life in the ICU. I worried for my son, all alone without his mother. I worried for Mel, having been poisoned and tortured long before a finger was laid on me. Where was this asshole getting this from, that I hated men? He was projecting his own insecurities onto me. I hated him, that was for sure.
We are gonna have ourselves a game of choice. A game of decisions and consequences,
Harold said, moving out from right in front of me, so I could see Mel tied to the wheelchair behind him. Harold looked like he was barely clinging to life. How much longer could he last?
You see this tray of goodies right here,
Harold said, as he slid a metal tray over on a rolling stand. A couple of scalpels, loaded syringes, pliers, cloth, and biggest of all, an industrial nail gun. He gave me a beaming smile, with his immaculately white teeth.
You see these 3 syringes?
He waved his hand over them nonchalantly, and I gave them a passing glance of disdain.
I used one of them to wake up your former employee, Sergeant Kilo Marine, sir.
He laughed and gave a mocking salute.
He should be coming around shortly. I need him to feel every bit of what you are about to do to him. It's the green one, okay?
Harold said to me in a mocking baby tone.
The little syringe with the green cap means it's good for you. Green for go, okay, Blondie? Some uppers to make sure you two don't pass out on me, okay? So we can keep playing.
Mel was indeed waking up. I was so glad he wasn't dead. He was blinking away his grogginess and was trying to see through his 2 swollen eyes. Dried blood caked his entire body, and he was still nailed to his chair by large spikes through his hands and metal wire wrapping around them.
Now this one.
He held a yellow-capped syringe in front of me.
This one is for caution. Whoever I stick with this syringe will go pretty numb. Take all the feeling away. This little yellow beauty can be a blessing or a curse during the game we are playing. It can grant you temporary relief from your pain, but I manufactured the numbing effect to wear off quickly, so we can continue playing many rounds of our game. So be sure to keep that in mind before you start being a smartass with me, just because you think I can't hurt you once you get the yellow prick. I can always wait about 10 minutes for the serum to wear off, and then I'll hurt you again.
What about the red one? I asked evenly. I was tired of his routine, and I wanted him to get to the point, but I didn't want to incur his wrath again. I would have to find more subtle ways to rebel against my captor.
This one?
He asked loudly, grabbing the red syringe and feigning like he was going to stab the needle right into my left eye socket. He stopped his strike only 2 inches from my open eyeball. I wouldn't have been able to defend myself or dodge any attack if he really wanted to follow through. But still, I flinched like I was shocked by lightning, and my body tensed up like twisted cables. But I didn't give him the pleasure of screaming or turning my head away.
This red little devil makes the heart go pop,
he announced with a self-satisfied grin.
Instant, mostly painless death. 1 second you're here. The next,
he snapped his fingers loudly.
you're in the arms of Jesus, just like the rapture.
Harold laid the syringe down neatly beside the others on the tray and retrieved a pair of pliers. I noticed Mel was awake now too, and vaguely watching me and Harold.
I know you recognize these,
Harold said with venom in his voice.
You used them enough on your NPC while playing my game, didn't you?
My heart dipped as I remembered all the atrocious things I had committed to my virtual body double during my countless playthroughs looking for clues. I remembered a lot of those heinous acts were completed with the use of pliers, exactly like the ones in front of me now.
I'm gonna start slow with you. I know divas like you prize their looks above all else. So I'll rip something off that will grow back eventually. I'm gonna rip off a fingernail,
he told me with manic glee.
I'll start with the least useful finger and move onward in importance,
he explained, pointing at my left hand and smiling.
So let's see. Pinky finger of your left hand will go first,
Harold announced, jumping over to my left hand that was tightly restrained above me to grab my open palm before I could clench it into a fist. I tried to dig my fingernails into his skin, but he was wearing leather gloves.
This little piggy's time is up. Time to go to the market,
he squealed as I felt the metal pliers grind against my left pinky finger's nail. Harold was fishing the pliers around, the rough metal trying to find the lip of my nail to hook onto.
You son of a bitch! You dirty son of a…
I started screaming at him in complete panic. I was thrashing around futilely, in my restraints trying to escape the oncoming pain.
Don't scream,
Harold demanded in a firm voice. His green eyes looked into mine, and I could see the flames of insanity dancing within them.
That's another rule in this game. You scream, something worse happens. So it would behoove you to be quiet during my adjustments of your person.
I tried to bite back my screams as the rusty metal pliers again found the lip of my well-manicured fingernail. Harold was completely focused as he leaned in, holding my hand still with one of his hands, while the other began to pry the small, painful dome off of the top of my finger. I felt the pliers catch and the nail come loose. My mind gave me the mental picture of a car hood being popped open, and electric fire burned up my hand from my pinky tip. I screamed. As soon as my high-pitched yelp of pain escaped my lips, Harold stopped his painful prying at my pinky nail and looked at me sternly. I bit my bottom lip and whimpered to myself, not knowing what was coming, but knowing it would be bad. Without hesitation, the deviant Herald of the Void replaced the pliers on the metal tray and grabbed the heavy nail gun. He heaved it up and around to point almost point blank at Mel slumped in his chair. With a loud pop, the nail gun fired its namesake, the 6-inch distance to impact into Mel's tattooed belly, causing his skin to ripple from the impact. Mel screamed. He was fully awake now. The nail seemed to have disappeared into his massive belly, but as he screamed and constricted his stomach muscles, the metal tip of the nail became visible around the violent leakage of blood.
You scream. He suffers with you,
Harold said, and slammed the nail gun back down on the tray. He picked up the pliers again.
I'll go through both of your hands and both of your feet. Let's just say I don't like the color you choose for them, because it's all coming off, he laughed. And every time you shout or scream, I will pop a cap in old Mel here, Harold said, backing away from me and straightening his gloves and apron. I knew one of his speeches was coming. Let's just say I began to grow a fondness for Mel.
Harold chuckles, gesturing with both hands at Mel as he struggled and breathed deeply.
Like a big Samoan teddy bear, am I right? He kind of fell into my lap. He was my first torture victim. That wasn't an animal or cadaver. I wanted my first to be you, but I was nervous. So I popped my tortured cherry with this big old lug. And you know,
Harold laughed,
I guess I caught feelings. So here's your prize. You can keep him as a pet if you win the game. I didn't know how I felt having another man getting between us, but, well, he isn't technically a man anymore. So I guess I have nothing to worry about.
With horror, I just realized the truth. Mel was a bigger guy and his belly obscured a lot. And I respect him too much to look at his private region during such an inappropriate time. But now I had to look. And Harold was telling the truth. He had mutilated Mel down there. Hot tears flowed from my eyes. This was all my fault. He was kidnapped because his job was to protect me.
I gave him the Griffith treatment. Pre-eclipse, mind you.
The psycho standing in front laughed. Also, I had no idea what he was referencing.
I took his manhood, sliced his Achilles tendons, and removed his tongue. All he can do is mumble and pull himself around like a big gorilla. A pet gorilla.
Through my tears, I saw tears on Mel's eyes too. He was once a proud warrior, a Marine, a protector, a professional. How much I wished I could protect him now.
If you keep screaming during your nail removal, I'll keep plugging away at him with the nail gun. Nail for a nail, you see. At the end of the whole thing, you get to take care of what's left of poor Mel. I'll let both of you share a cell together. I'll even throw in some first aid for you to patch him back up. Let's see how long you can keep our pet alive,
Harold said, jumping towards me again and grabbing my left hand with one hand while angling the pliers towards him with the other.
Don't scream, okay?
Wait, please, Herald of the Void, don't do this to him anymore. Leave him out of it. He was just doing his job, I pleaded. And to my surprise, Harold stopped and listened. This whole thing is about you and me, right? Can we just leave him out of it? I'll do anything, I begged. Harold straightened and sighed dramatically.
I almost forgot to tell you what the red and yellow syringes were used for during the game. It's the second option. You can select death for Mel. I'll numb your hand, and we will move forward in this relationship together. Just the two of us, alone, with no distraction.
Why didn't you tell me that first? I asked, trying to understand him. I studied his face for signs of deception, but he only stared back blankly.
I thought you would choose to keep Mel. You are a strong-willed girl and fight me on just about everything. I didn't believe you were ready to choose to be alone with me yet. I was going to let you have a pet for a while,
Harold said, actually looking at the ground like an insecure child that was called to stand in front of the class.
I thought the burden of keeping him alive and fed and clean would slowly cause you to resent him. And eventually you will see all the wonderful things I'm willing to do for you after I have remade you. But I want you to choose to be with me. To be honest,
Harold spoke barely above a whisper as he leaned over me, just inches from my face.
I know why God gave us free will. He could have programmed us to love him like obedient little robots. But that's not real love. That's just following orders or genetic programming. No, he continued. God wants us to choose to love him, even through all his perceived faults and our own faults. He wants to be chosen and loved. That's the makings of true love. True love is sometimes born from something that was once a burning hate. Harold finished, silently proud of himself and nodding slightly to his own genius. Anyways, he said, snapping out of his twisted reverie and holding up the pliers to my left hand. Let's get on with the game. For Mel's sake, I hope you are less gabby than I am right now. Don't, I said, but my voice cracked midway through the syllables, and I began to sob. Now, pet. I'll have to punish him because you keep speaking out of turn, Harold said, turning to get the nail gun once more. No, I cried. I locked eyes with Mel, and he stared back solemnly. He nodded to me slightly, accepting his fate. Give him the red syringe. Let him die. I don't need a pet. It only needs to be the two of us. By this time, I was a sobbing, snot-bubbling mess as Harold stood back to observe both of us. He wore an expression of shock that slowly turned into a reassuring smile. This is a great first step, pet, he cooed softly to me. Freeing yourself from past attachments will better help you accept your future. And for this great progress you have made, I will end Mel's sad existence, and you will get a brief respite from your transformation today. Harold stalked over to me and stuck the yellow syringe into the fat of my left thumb. Within seconds, my whole hand went numb, and Harold grabbed my dangling pinky nail and ripped it off with his own fingers. I felt nothing. You see, pet, Mel served a two-pronged purpose. He was supposed to be your pet. He was supposed to show you what you will become for me in the future. He was a teaching tool for you to better understand me. Harold sighed and leaned against me, his hand stroking my hair. But since you've chosen to end the experiment with Mel early, I guess I'll just tell you the plans I have for you. But first, Harold announced, let us administer the fatal dose to Mel. I want him to be still semi-conscious when he hears my plans for you, but I want him to feel the poison's bite at the same time. The madman laughed as he walked over to Mel and stuck the red needle right in Mel's right pec. Mel didn't flinch, just gave Harold a death stare. Wait, I don't get it, I asked through my sniveling and tears. Isn't the red syringe supposed to kill Mel immediately? Oh, that, Harold said, tossing both the red and yellow syringes back down on the metal tray between us. I lied to you about it being an instantaneous death. Yes, he will die a lot quicker this way, but no. No, it won't be painless. In fact, I designed it to be extremely painful. 2 or 3 hours of intense agony, Harold giggled as he bent down to look in Mel's eyes. I mixed in some venom from a boom-slaying snake. You are going to experience headache, muscle spasms, nausea, and my favorite, he smiled wickedly at Mel, bleeding from your pores. Mel lunged forward in an attempt to headbutt Harold, but Harold retreated just in time. All Mel got for his efforts was the nail in his hand and wire around his wrists to dig deeper. Eventually, your lungs will fill up with fluid and your throat will swell, Harold said, addressing Mel. That's if the convulsions don't kill you first.
Harold ended the talk by slapping Mel lightly on his sweaty cheek with his leather-gloved hand.
Then it's game over for you. But you, pet,
Harold said, spinning back to face me.
I want him to hear this, and I want you to take the time to fully grasp your situation. Remember, when Mel is gone, it's just you and me, and nothing will stop the future that I have planned for you. Nothing. Once your mind has been broken, and you have fully accepted me as your God, I will transform you into my plaything,
Harold said, reaching out to play with my hair.
Just imagine, you with no arms and no legs, and no responsibility or care in the world.
I'll probably break all your teeth out too. I can't have you biting me. My stomach convulsed, and I instinctively started pulling at my restraints.
I'll take care of you, feed you, clean you, carry you. Eventually the public will forget about you. Even your son will have weeks or months where the thought of you never crosses his mind. You will be lost, fallen out of existence, but still mine and no one else's.
I began to scream at him. Not words, just primal screams of fear and rage. He had taken everything from me, and I saw no way of escaping the morbid future he had planned. Sorry to cut off like this. I thought I could tell the rest of what happened tonight, but this is a lot longer than I remember. Also, all of this has brought up some painful PTSD memories. I need to lie down. I'll tell you the rest next time. I promise.